This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I'm Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you could as well, please give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. It would be very appreciated. It's very helpful to us to see what you guys like, what you guys don't like, with the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And if you're on social media, we are also on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are, we are, so you can reach out, you can debate things, you can discuss things with us. We're always welcome to speak to you guys in that way. And today, if you are a fan of the, I almost said New Jersey, Brooklyn Nets, then you got some unfortunate news today, being Thursday. I'm recording this Thursday night. It was reported early, during Thursday night at some point, that Kyrie Irving would officially undergo season-ending surgery that would obviously shut him down for the season and kind of change the way the Nets look for the rest of the year. Like I said, this was announced by General Manager Sean Marks Thursday night. Marks said the decision was made after Irving had visited with a specialist the past few days. Obviously Irving wasn't happy, but he had been playing through. He played early in the season, then he missed some time over 2 months with the right shoulder impingement, is what they're calling it, and before eventually being able to return in mid-January following a cortisone shot. But after he missed the final 5 games before the All-Star break with a knee sprain, he suffered a nasty-looking fall and a loss to the Wizards on February 1st. It was determined that it wasn't worth Irving playing through the pain in the shoulder any longer. They weren't going to have him get another cortisone shot. They were looking out for his long-term health, and this seems like the cortisone shot would have just been putting off the inevitable. So it makes sense for them to go this way and make sure that Kyrie goes through the necessary procedure so that his shoulder can be 100% healthy, hopefully for this next season and for the future. Obviously, he's still pretty young, so you don't want this kind of being a lingering thing that ends up unfortunately shortening his career. So you can understand why the Nets decided to do this at this time, even though from their perspective it may not be the best thing for him, but obviously best thing for them as a franchise, but it's obviously the best thing for him. So, like I said, it makes a lot of sense. Apparently the possibility for surgery had been on the table during Irving's initial absence. At the time, it was decided that the better path was for Irving to get a cortisone shot and see how his shoulder responded, in hopes of avoiding surgery altogether, which I kind of get, just because with a lot of these athletes and stuff, they don't want to have to get surgery, because then surgery means either out for an extended period of time or potentially done for the year. So they want to try to see if there's ways in which they can play and not have to go under the knife. But eventually, if the injury is bad enough, they're going to have to get the surgery, and just delaying it really just does that. It just delays the inevitable, unfortunately. And this is, I guess, kind of the same situation that happened with Kyrie. So yeah, that's the situation with him. It closes the door for him playing. Obviously, the rest of the season. This season had been pretty up and down for both Kyrie and the Nets as a whole. I mean, it started out well when he had 55 in the season opening loss, but then from there it's been up and downs, obviously, with him fighting through injury, him trying to fit in with guys like Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, and Joe Harris and the likes, and obviously no KD. So like I said, it hasn't been necessarily all rosy for both Irving and the Nets. He only played in 20 games this season. So there's not really, it's hard to really say for certain how, I shouldn't say how, but who it makes sense to bring back next year, because obviously assuming health is all good and everything, you'll have KD coming back healthy and hopefully Kyrie coming back healthy, and that obviously changes the courts changes the way the Nets will have to play. And you were hoping this year you could figure out who works best with Kyrie and then work from there, and just so you get kind of a baseline, even though obviously adding KD, a player of KD's caliber, into the mix changes a lot of things for any franchise, not just, it wouldn't matter where he was, it would change the course of many teams. And unfortunately, due to Kyrie's injury, they weren't even able to get that. So now they're really, I mean, the season was always kind of going to be a wash because, like I said, there's no KD. But now it's like extra a wash just because now they don't even have an idea necessarily of who plays well with Kyrie, because he only played, like I said, 20 games. So it wasn't, like, that's not really enough time to get a true gauge on who should and who shouldn't be in the long-term plans for the Nets. So that part is definitely unfortunate for them. And they played their first game tonight without him. They played the Sixers. They ended up losing in overtime, but for a big stretch of that game, they were winning. I know what was it, like a 44-6, 44-8 something run through the second quarter. I think they ended up being up by 20 at some point in that second quarter, though. They only ended the half up 10, which obviously was kind of a sign of things to come. As like I said, the Sixers were able to cut into the lead, and then they were eventually able to pull it out in overtime. The Nets were only able to score 1 point in overtime, and that's kind of going to be their issue going forward, is that where are the points going to come from? Obviously, like I said, Kyrie had missed a lot of time, so it's not like this is anything new. But now with you knowing that he's not coming back, it's like, all right, who's going to be willing to take that load of being the number one guy night in and night out? Today, it seemed like it was Karis LeVert, at least in terms of if you look at the shot attempts. He took 29 shots, which is 10 more than Dinwiddie, who was the next highest, and he only had 25 points. And they only scored, I think it was 1 point in overtime, which at the very least, when Kyrie's healthy, that's kind of a situation where he can thrive in terms of, like, if there's ever a point where you just like, all right, we just need somebody to get us a bucket. Kyrie's at least the guy that can handle his own one-on-one. You don't need to necessarily run a set or run a play for him. He can just get the ball in the wing or get the ball on the top of the key and dribble it out and find a way to get a shot. I mean, Dinwiddie can do that too, to a degree. Obviously not the same level as Kyrie, but without him out there, now the offense has to run differently, just because of the fact that you don't have that go-to guy per se. And if there is anybody that's go-to guy, it's probably Dinwiddie, and obviously Dinwiddie was helped by, when Kyrie did play, it helped that they were both on the court, so you couldn't just like necessarily key on Dinwiddie. You have to obviously focus a lot of your attention on Kyrie. So that won't be the case going forward, and it's like an interesting situation Nets are in, because right now they're only they're in the 7th seed, and they're only a game and a half up on the 8th seed in the East, who's the Magic. They're, I guess this is 4.5 up on the 9th seed Wizards, so if they go on a little bit of a skid here, they could easily fall out of the playoff race. So it'll be interesting to see how and if they're able to keep themselves afloat and at least hold on to the playoff spot. I mean, obviously they made with D'Lo, so it's a little bit different, but they made the playoffs without Kyrie last year. They're in the playoffs now, and the East isn't that great. At this point, two teams with the record under 500 make the playoffs in the 7th and 8th spot in the East, so it's not they need to be that great to hold on to their spot, but like I said, it'll just be interesting to see how they're able to maintain without Kyrie, and if they're able to maintain, honestly, just because, like I said, even though he's been in and out of the lineup, knowing that they don't have him back at all the rest of the season definitely changes things for them. Though they have some chances to kind of I guess we'll find out kind of where they're at over the rest of this month, because coming up next, they play the Hornets on Saturday, Magic on Monday, Wizards next Wednesday, Hawks next Friday, who just beat the Heat tonight, so that's something. And then, speaking of that, they play the Heat next Saturday, so those are 4 teams below them in the standings, and then the Heat, obviously, who are also in the playoffs. So we'll get a good gauge on, at least in the immediate part of the season, like where the Nets are at. Just because, like I said, they're going to be playing teams that aren't necessarily that quote unquote that good, and if they beat them, then all right, then they might be able to hold might be able to hold their playoff position. But if they struggle, then you know that it could go bad, barring some sort of late season run from them. Because after this month, they only have 23 games left, so it's a good amount. It's like a fourth of the season, a little over a fourth of the season they'll have left. But also at the same time, it's not really that many games. So you really, as you get closer and closer to the end of the season, you kind of can't afford to drop some of these games. And these are obviously, when you're a team fighting for a playoff spot like the Nets will be for the rest of the season, every game's going to matter. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out. And then obviously, if they get to the playoffs, good for them. They're probably not going to beat whether the 7 or 8 seed. They're not going to be, if they're the 8 seed, they're not going to beat the Bucks. They weren't going to beat the Bucks with Kyrie. The only chance they really had was if KD came back healthy, and with Kyrie out, I doubt that they're going to even try to push that. And then they get the 7 seed, you're playing like the Raptors or the Celtics or the Heat, whoever ends up getting that 2 seed. And they, like I said, it'll probably be a little bit closer because the Bucks just seem to find a way to just beat everybody and relatively easily. So at least you won't have to deal with that, and not won't have to deal with Giannis, obviously, but still it'll be tough for them. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the Nets season plays out, because this is obviously not what they would have hoped for, even without Kyrie. I mean, not without Kyrie, even without KD playing the season, which they kind of expected. They didn't expect to A, be below 500 at 25 and 29, and B, have Kyrie miss over 60 games. That was not in their plans. So this has just been a weird season, an up and down season for the Nets, and I guess we'll see if they're able to hold on and play well in Kyrie's absence, or if they kind of just fall apart over the last month and a half of the season. So that'll be something to watch. And after this next break, we're going to come back and talk about some other teams that maybe not because of injury, but could be trending up or trending down in this post All-Star break season that we're in now. Like I said, there's only about 25-30 games for each team left, depending on where they're at. So I'm gonna point out a couple of the teams that I think could be on the rise, and a couple of things that I think may fall back to the pack, excluding the Nets, obviously, because I just did that. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after this break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, as I mentioned, I'm going to discuss some of the teams that I think could be on the rise or maybe fall back to the pack during this, like I said, the last 25, 30 games of the season. And one of those teams that I think could do it if they get through this next little rough stretch is potentially the Celtics. I know I've talked about on this podcast already how, and this was mainly during their wintering, how the Raptors may very well be the best threat to the Bucks in the East in terms of a team that could potentially dethrone them. I don't know for certain, and I guess we'll talk about that a little bit more as the playoffs get near, if there's any team that I think could do it. But the one team that I haven't talked about too much this year, and I think could very well end up catching the Raptors for that 2 seed, is the Boston Celtics. They're only a game and a half back at this current moment, and if they can get through their next stretch of games, they could be in good shape. I mean, they're already like I said, they're already doing pretty well in the season. Very good at home. Actually have a higher point differential than the Raptors, so that's pretty interesting. They're playing. They were playing great heading to All-Star break, 8-2 in their last 10 games. And yeah, if they can get past this next little stretch, then they could be all right. I mean, they play the Wolves, I think, Friday. Then they play the Lakers on Sunday. Then they got the Blazers, Jazz, Rockets to finish out February, which are some tough games. Then they play the Nets, which would be a little bit easier with no Kyrie. They play the Cavs, the Jazz, the Thunder, playoff team, Pacers, playoff team, and the Bucks, a playoff team. But after they get past this Bucks game on March 12th, that's when the schedule really lightens up for them. They play in their following games: the Wizards, Bulls, Knicks, Raptors, which will be a big one for them. Nets again, like I said. We'll see where they're at in their season at that point. Wizards again, Grizzlies, who are, again, they're a playoff team as of this moment, but they're still young, so you got to see how they hold up throughout the end of the season. The Blazers and the Wolves. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So after the 9 games are against teams under 500, and the Grizzlies could very well be at that by that point in time. The Raptors won't. So that, like I said, the Raptors won't, but they'll have a chance to play the Raptors and beat them to have a shot to kind of take their spot for that 2 seed in the East. If they can take care of business over the next couple weeks, as like I said, the schedule's a little bit tougher. But if they get past that, then like I said, the schedule lines up towards the end of March, and that's when they could really, really go on a run here and kind of propel themselves into that 2nd seed. So that's the Celtics are definitely a team I would keep my eye on. Obviously, like I said, they've been great all the season. They've been just as good, if not better, than anyone could have expected. Kemba's fit in seamlessly since they moved on from him. Moved on from Kyrie and replaced him with Kemba. Jason Tatum obviously played at an all-star caliber level this year. Jaylen Brown has played at an all-star caliber level this year. Guys like Tyus Cantor and Smart have all been very vital to the success of the team this year, and Brass even just seems to have found a way to get everybody to play. Oh, Hayward's also playing better this year. I forgot to mention him, but he's also playing well this year, and obviously, like, the further he is removed from that leg injury, the better he would be. Obviously, he struggled a little bit with last year, but maybe that some of that was because he was playing with Kyrie, and the touches were a little inconsistent, you could say. But now he's playing well, and he's like I say, he's been a big help for them. And Brad Stevens has been pressing all the right buttons at this point. So, I think they're a team that, like I said, if they can get through the next about a month, and they can get to the end of March schedule where things start to lighten up, and if they can take care of business there, they could very well position themselves into having a chance at least at the 2 seed in the East, which it will be good because, I mean, regardless, if you're the 2 or 3 seed, then you avoid the Bucks until the conference finals, which is obviously ideal. But then also in an eventual 2-3 series with the Raptors or the Heat or the Sixers, even if the Sixers can make a run a little bit, then you get home court advantage, which is obviously big. Like I said, they're 23-5 at home, so when you're that good, you want to try to get as many home games as you can. And like I said, the higher seed you are, the more likelihood that you will have home games. So that'll be big for the Celtics. Another team that could potentially be on the move upward is the Blazers, actually. I know I talked about them being I don't want to say easy team, but a team that's below 500 that the Celtics would play. But also, I mean, it just depends on if the Blazers can get Nurkic back, and also how they play with Lillard out. I mean, also they've had to deal with a lot of injuries this year, and Lillard won't play on Friday against the Pelicans. He could miss 3 or 4 more games due to that right groin injury he suffered before the All-Star break, which kept him out of the All-Star break and the 3-point contest and all that stuff. But it'd be if they can find a way to obviously get him back, maybe get Nurkic back, get Collins back. They're not that far out from the 8th seed. They're 3.5 games, which, I mean, isn't nothing, but it's also not an insurmountable amount of games with as many games left in the season as they have. They have what they played 56. So they have 56. So they have 26 games left. That's a good amount of time. They play, they play the Pelicans, Pistons, and Hawks all coming up in 3 of their next 5 games. Although, like I said, the Hawks did beat the Heat today, so not always flashes that they're connecting on all cylinders. But I think Trae Young had 50 today in that game, so you can't count on that every night. But I mean, it's not impossible that he could get 50 in a night if he's on. So there's that. But yes, they play those are 3 of the next 5, and then in the month of March they got the Magic, Wizards, Suns, Kings, Suns, Grizzlies, Rockets, Wolves, Mavs, Wolves, Hornets, Pistons, Celtics, Sixers, Nets. Like, they don't play that many good teams in the month of March. So, like I said, they can get guys back healthy. They can potentially, like I said, pick off some of these bad teams that they may have been losing to throughout the season and get themselves right in the thick of things, at least make things interesting down the stretch for that 8 seed. They could definitely find a way to make things interesting, and then also the last 3 games, 2 of the last 3 games are against the Nuggets and the Clippers, and by then guys may be resting guys. They may already have their seeding locked up, so they could benefit from that as well down the stretch, playing teams that are trying to get guys rest before the playoffs, while obviously the Blazers will be fighting for every game. So if they can find a way to get some guys back healthy Like I said, the schedule sets up pretty favorably for them in the month of March, where they play only, as of right now, 1, 2, 3, 4. They play 5 teams in their 15 games that have a record over 500, and one of those being the Grizzlies, who could drop back from that 500 record. I mean, above 500 record by the time the Blazers play them. So they're another team to keep an eye out for in terms of a team that could potentially move up, but in terms of a team that could potentially drop back, not necessarily out of the playoffs, but drop back a little bit. You could say maybe a team like the Jazz, they're at the 4 seed now. They're only 5-5 in their last 10 games, they've won 4 in a row, so they were struggling before that point. Though obviously, that helps. They're a half a game back in the 3 seed, but they're only a game and a half up on the Rockets, who have seemed to be playing pretty well. I mean, they played the Warriors today, so they kind of figure they're going to win that game. They've been playing really well since they went to that small ball lineup full time. At least, and they already played the Jazz recently and could have and probably should have beaten them if not for a very miraculous 3-pointer from Bogdanovich to give them the win. And then and speaking of which, they play them coming up this Saturday. So the Jazz are a team that has kind of been a little up and down. They started out this year kind of slow, and then they got hot, and then they kind of cooled off a little bit recently. But you got teams ahead of them like the Clippers, who seem to be all healthy at this point in time. And obviously they got to try to get some of that chemistry worked out together. So they're not going to be doing as much load management, as much resting guys, obviously, unless there's serious injury, than they would have been earlier in the season. So they're not just going to have. They're going to have them trying hard. The Nuggets are still the Nuggets in terms of their team just plays well together, and they're in the 2 seed now, and they're a game and a half up on the Jazz for that 2 seed. And like I said, the Rockets are still coming. The Thunder a little bit, and Thunder and Mavs are a little bit further behind. But the Rockets are right on their heels at a game and a half back. And then, like I said, they played them Saturday, so that would be a good chance to get some of that revenge. And the Jazz's schedule is a little less fair. Actually, I don't want to say that. It's decently favorable for them. And they get a nice little homestand in the middle of March. But they play a lot of good teams, especially to close out the season. They play, like I said, the Blazers, who will be fighting for a playoff spot at that point, so they're going to be trying. The Nuggets, the Clippers, the Suns, who knows what the Suns will be at, the Thunder, who would potentially be a first round matchup for them, depending on how the seeding falls out, and then the Nuggets again. So in their last 7 games, they play 4 teams with a winning record, and then the Blazers, who will probably be fighting for their lives at that point. So that's not necessarily the easiest schedule to close out, and they play the Blazers, the Nuggets once, and the Thunder all on the road. You get the Clippers, and then that last Jazz game to end the season at home. But they're definitely a team that I could see if they start to sputter a little bit, and if they start to sputter a little bit, and the Rockets stay hot with this small ball lineup, which they've been extremely hot as of this point, and not to say you can't see them slowing down, but it's I guess you kind of just have to see it to believe it first, because a lot of people said that this wasn't going to work for the Rockets, and it's worked to this point. Obviously, it's a very small sample size. I think they've only played 8 games officially where they've gone with this full time, but or something like that, 8-10, because it hasn't been that many games. So you have to see how it'll play out 20, 30 games. But as of right now, they're playing well this way. So the Jazz can't really afford to slip up, because now they're dropping back to the 5 seed, maybe even the 6 if the Thunder play well. So that would be a team to look at that maybe could, who's in a top 4 seed right now, that could potentially drop back. And also, I guess you have like the Grizzlies who could potentially drop out. Like I said, they're a young team. You don't really know how they're going to play over this last bit of the season. Towards the end of the season, if guys are going to get tired out, if guys are going to start to wear it down as the season goes on, because obviously a lot of these guys aren't used to playing this much for this many games. And then also, I guess you always have the Pelicans who could potentially come back up as well, just because the Zion effect. We'll see how much they're going to want to push him and play him in this post All-Star break season, if you will. And if they're going to, and obviously the playoff is like would be a cool thing for them. It's not really necessarily a thing that I don't necessarily going to go for over the sake of preserving Zion's health. But if he's not on that minimum restriction and he's still continuing to play the way he's playing, I mean, you can't count the Pelicans out in a West where the 8th seed is only one game over 500 at this point, isn't there? I think they're, what are they? They're like, they're not that many games back. They are 5 games back of the 8th seed. They have 27 games to play, so quite a bit of games still left on their schedule. So yeah, the Pelicans are one. Like I said, if Zion is able to play freely over these last 20 plus games, maybe they're a team that can slide up too. So there's going to be a lot of things to be figured out, and a lot of movement up and a lot of movement down over the next month and a half as the NBA season kind of winds down. So it'll be interesting to see whether the teams that I talked about move up, or there's maybe some other teams that move up or move down, and just like the overall and how the overall seeding ends up playing out to end the season. So that's definitely what I'm going to be keeping my eye on as a NBA season continues on. So after this next break, we're going to transition over to football, and it sounds like, at least from a league standpoint, an owner standpoint, they have a CBA that they like, but we're going to talk about what I think that CBA works well for the players, and also some of the things that are in that new CBA that could potentially be agreed on if the players decide to go with it in the coming days. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, as I mentioned before the break, on Thursday, NFL owners accepted the negotiated terms of a new proposed collective bargaining agreement, sending the vote to players ahead of potential agreement between the two sides. This is from an article on ESPN, just like the Kyrie article from earlier was from ESPN as well. So, all 32 owners met Thursday in New York City for an update on the current proposal. 3/4 of the owners had to approve CBA for it to be ratified, while owners were not unanimous in their approval, a source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. The proposal still garnered enough support to pass, which is obviously the most important thing on their end, was just that they were able to get enough of the owners to sign off on it. So now, like they said in the article, it's up to the player side of things to agree on it. And following more than 10 months of intensive and thorough negotiation. The NFL players and clubs have jointly developed a comprehensive set of new and revised terms that will transform the future of the game, provide for players past, present, and future, both on and off the field, and ensure that the NFL's second century is even better and more exciting for the fans, the league said in a statement. Like I said, the league side, the owner side, voted and approved, so now you're just waiting for the player side. If 2/3 of the NFLPA's player reps approve the deal, it would move on to the next stage in which all NFL players would vote, and a simple majority would be required to approve it. According to the NFLPA memo released Thursday, some of the proposals' key terms that player reps, union and the union's executive team, executive council, I should say, will weigh when they meet is the elimination of any game suspension strictly for positive marijuana tests, which would be a big deal, though. I mean, if you're somebody like Greg Robinson and you get arrested with basically an average adult male amount in terms of pounds of marijuana, then that doesn't help you at all. But for everybody else, it's probably fine. A reduction in the number of players subjected to testing for marijuana, gambling definitions that ensure players receive a portion of gambling revenue brought by the league, which actually would be pretty big. Alterations to training camp, including the introduction to a 5-day acclimation period, a limit of 16 days in pads, and a limit of 4 joint practices in 3 preseason game in a 3 preseason game scenario, which we'll get to in a second. An increase in active squad by one offensive lineman, and one of the NFL's best players, J.J. Watt, tweeted out that he did not like the new proposal. So there is that. See how that goes. And sources had previously told ESPN that the proposed CBA would allow the league to expand the regular season from 16 to 17 games at some point in the next 4 years, not before 2021. So it wouldn't be for this upcoming season. In exchange for financial and other concessions, the players have sought in negotiation. One concession is that the preseason be shortened, which I guess obviously that makes. So it's really not any different. So I don't know if that's exactly what the players are asking for. But if they make it 17-game season, then they just have 3 preseason games. So it's still the same 20 weeks. It's just that one more game that actually matters would be happening instead of an extra preseason game, which at this point, most of the major most of the best teams aren't really playing their guys in more than like 1, max 2 preseason game anyway. So it's like, you really don't even need more than 3, in my opinion. So that probably works best. And also, at the very least, if I'm going to get hurt from a player's perspective and from a team perspective, if I'm going to have a guy get hurt, it's better to have them get hurt. It's not better to have them get hurt at all, but if they're going to get hurt, at least have them get hurt in a game that matters. Excuse me. As opposed to a game that doesn't. And that's the way I view it. Is at least if you get hurt in a regular season game, all right, it is what it is. That's what happens. If you get hurt in a preseason game, that's just like that makes it hurt more because it's like you didn't even there was no obviously there's no benefit, but there was it's just like it didn't even matter because this game didn't matter. So it was at least it was like when you have major injuries in the preseason, it's always rough from my perspective. So yeah, going back to going back to CBA, in addition, sources said that starting in 2020, the playoff field would be expanded to 7 teams from each conference, and only 1 team from each conference would receive a first-round bye as opposed to the 2 that currently do, which I thought was interesting, and obviously that was met with some mixed reviews on social media. And that's kind of how it goes. A lot of people don't like change to the status quo. A lot of people were unhappy with the changes to the All-Star game when they initially were announced, and then they watched the game and it made it better. So people have to apologize for that. I'm not apologize. No one is going to call Adam Silver and be like, "Hey, I'm sorry that I tweeted bad things about the All-Star game before this." But at the very least, if they would have waited at least to see how it played out, me and self included, I was kind of a little bit on the fence about it because I wasn't sure how it was going to work with the winning each quarter kind of thing, how that was going to play out. And obviously, like I said, it played out very well in the fourth quarter. Played out very well. So maybe this extra playoff game could pay a playoff team, I should say, could pay off one. And I mean, from this perspective, I can see how this is something that maybe more. I mean, the owners probably don't care because if there's an extra playoff team, that means a chance for extra playoff revenue. So I don't think they'll be mad about that. But from a player perspective, I mean, I guess they'll get like if they make the playoffs, and then that could be more incentive for players and coaches. Even though this is not really about the coaches right now, but it's more incentives. Like obviously, taking teams to the playoffs maybe a part of your contract, and definitely be a part of the coach's contract. So expanding the playoff field will be helpful, and then even along with that, I mean, adding one more wild card game on each side doesn't really change that much. I don't think anybody's going to be mad about having to watch 2 extra playoff games during that wild card weekend. I don't. Even if you don't like this, you're still going to watch the 6 playoff games as opposed to the 4. It's not really going to change anything. Though, in fairness, I guess in this year, if that happened, then the Steelers would have gotten in, the Rams would have gotten in. And, I mean, no one really wanted to see Duck Hodges in the playoffs, unless you're a Steelers fan. Honestly, no offense. But the Duck versus, who was the 2 seed? Mahomes and the Chiefs, it would have just been, the Steelers defense is really good, so it wouldn't have been easy, but if Mahomes was going to play the way he played throughout most of that playoff games, for most of the playoffs, minus like the first half to 3 quarters of the Super Bowl, then it wasn't going to matter. And then obviously you got Duck Hodges, who, give him his credit, he was out there fighting and doing the best he could, but I mean, he's not necessarily a guy that people were clamoring to see in the playoffs. And then I guess they were, from the Rams' perspective, I mean, they were another team that was kind of, for different reasons than the Steelers, they underachieved a little bit this year, a little up and down. And I don't necessarily know if anybody would have been like, anyone really was like, oh, darn, we missed out on the Rams, seeing the Rams in the playoffs this year. Like I said, they weren't really that great of a team overall this season. Though I guess the Rams-Packers matchup would have been mildly interesting. At least give them that. Would have been interesting just because both those, I didn't think the Packers were all that good this year. And obviously the Rams weren't that good, so it's just been interesting to see. Like that would have been easily a game that the Rams could have upset them. I know they beat they gave it to the Seahawks pretty good during that last month of the season. And I mean, they finished 9-7, I'm pretty sure. So it's not like they were a really bad team. They just weren't like obviously as good as they had been. So, I mean, I'm not that mad about the extra playoff team, just because, like I said, I don't really mind an extra playoff game. And also I guess it could kind of make that fight for the 1 seed a little bit more interesting now. Unfortunately for the players, they might have to play more just because now maybe you can't risk with only 1 bye. There'll be a lot more teams will play their players at the end of the season, as opposed to like a lot of teams kind of like rest their guys towards the end of the season if they're like locked into a spot. But with both an extra playoff seed and only 1 bye on the line, then a lot of these teams may end up playing their guys more. I mean, not playing the guys more, but playing the guys in their last game of the season, to whether it's to knock somebody out of the playoffs or to keep your guys fresh for the playoffs that next week. There's just more competitiveness down the stretch of the season, which is obviously all that the league wants. The 17 game, I'm not necessarily in favor of that, though. I guess no. I mean, the sort of preseason makes sense, but like the extra game, I just don't think that's necessary. I mean, obviously we're all in the era of player health and player consciousness, and player safety, so it's like, why play an extra game and risk that? It seems kind of backwards to me. And obviously I see what owners want it, because again, extra game equals more money, and you get more money from regular season game than you do from the preseason game. So obviously they have no problem taking that preseason game away. But it's just like I said, it's just like you don't. don't want to tire these guys out. And I mean, I don't know the science behind this, but I don't think there are many studies that say playing an extra game of football in the regular season is beneficial to the body. So there is that. Though I think I forget if I talked about this earlier or or who brought it up or where I read it, but I thought it would have been interesting if they had like a rule, if they had 17 games that any one player could only play in 16 of them. So the players still play 16, the league still gets their 17 games, and the owners still get their revenue for all the games. So that'd be interesting, just because, like I said, the player safety aspect of this, you don't want. I don't see how it's healthy for those guys to play an extra regular season game, per se, before playing in the playoffs. So it's like, all right, then you have the extra game overall, but then you only have guys play 16, and that would just add a more strategic aspect to it in terms of like when you decide to sit guys, and like if you get, and I think my dad mentioned this to me earlier when we talked about this, but just how like, all right, if you have a team that's getting hot towards the end of the season and you have a couple key guys that haven't missed a game yet, like how do you, like if you have like 3 games left, how do you manage sitting all those guys? Because like obviously you got to try to win every one of those games, maybe even at least 2 out of 3. But then, like I said, there's maybe your quarterback hasn't missed a game, your best wide receiver hasn't missed a game, your top pass rusher, your top corner, like something like that, like hasn't missed a game yet. So it's like, it's all right. How do we balance this out? So that would just add a cool aspect to it, in my opinion, and also, I mean, players miss games a lot anyway, so it's not like very few teams go through the season and have all their starters play the full 16 games anyway. So people are going to miss games regardless. So it's just like, all right, they're going to get banged up, they're going to get nicked up here and there anyway. So it's just like, all right, make it just easier, just have everybody have to play only a maximum of 16 games. They move it to 17. But I mean, I guess this all very depend on if the NFLPA decides to pass this. Like I said, it's still on the floor for them, and at least one player, J.J. Watt, has already stated that he doesn't like it. Though apparently the new CBA would give them more money. One point of contention in discussions have been the antiquated, fully funded rule, which teams often use in negotiation with players and agents as a means of refusing to guarantee larger portions of the contract. The rule, which dates to the early days of the league, when they had some doubts about teams' payroll, requires all teams to hold in escrow any amount of guaranteed money over $2 million in a player's contract. For example, if you get a $50 million contract with $25 guaranteed, the team has to hold $23 in escrow, ostensibly so you can be certain it will pay you. The new CBA would raise the funding rule threshold to $15 million in the first year of the proposed deal, and $17 million in 2029, the final year of the deal. So, in that earlier example, in 2020, the team would only have to hold $10 million in escrow of the $25 million guarantee. Players have had wanted the rule done away with completely, but they secured a compromise that would help them and help create more favorable ground for the agents and players in negotiations. And also, I think also they talked about like the 5th year option would be more, instead of just being like slotted, it would be more like performance based, in terms of like if you're playing well and you're on a 5th year option, then you get more money than if you're just like an average player that's on the 5th year option. So that's nice. I mean, they're trying to find ways to get the players more money, and I don't think that's just a way to kind of buy them in order to sell them, in order to get them to agree to the extra game in the season, which, I mean, they shouldn't, but we'll see if they do. So we'll see how this kind of plays out, and we'll talk more about that as the negotiations continue, and if and when it is either agreed upon or the players shoot it down. So we'll see how that goes over the next couple of days. But speaking of money, there was a former Cowboy that is telling a current Cowboy, or I guess technically he's a free agent, but there's a former retired Cowboy that is telling a pending free agent for the Cowboys that he should be willing to take less money to stay with the team. And I'll tell you who said it, who he's talking to, and for what reasons and why I think it would be objectively foolish for that player to take less money. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after this break, so stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, if you hadn't heard, Emmitt Smith, obviously, Cowboys legend, Hall of Famer, NFL's leading rusher, all that fun stuff, whatever title you want to give him, was on the Adam Lefkoe show, which is on Bleacher Report, and he said that Dak should be willing to take a quote-unquote team-friendly deal because the bump-up benefits that he would get from aligning himself with America's team would be helpful for him, which, I mean, has been a thing that many people have said for a while. And he also continues to say that Dak has to understand and maybe take another perspective. The perspective may not be all the money you get. It may be how much money you are willing to leave on the table because the Cowboys are a marketable organization. And he said, he also went on to say, if you're the face of the franchise, instead of taking $35 million, would you take $28 million and leave some for Amari and pick up the other $35 million through endorsements? And, I mean, all that sounds that sounds great. I was like, oh yeah, just definitely, face of the Cowboys, America's team, blah, blah, blah. You see what being a part of the Cowboys has gotten Troy Aikman. You see what it's gotten Tony Romo. You see what he even got Jason Witten for a year. I mean, he probably wasn't necessarily suited for that ESPN Monday Night Football role, but I mean, he got it because he was on the Cowboys. So there are definitely perks to being on the Cowboys. However, there are certain perks, I should say, that come with playing the quarterback position, and that position is that you can get paid more money than the rest of the players in the league can. Obviously to a degree, but in terms of from Dak's perspective, I mean, why should he have to be the one to take the less money? I mean, no one was telling Zeke, hey, when he was holding out, hey, maybe you should actually take less money. I was like, no, he's the best back in the league. I'm not exactly sure. I imagine Emmitt Smith probably commented on this as well. I believe somebody was saying on Twitter that he was all for Zeke holding out to get his money. And understanding so, I mean, he, as was pointed out also on Twitter, that he did that very same thing and ended up holding out, and then obviously when the Cowboys struggled in his absence, he ended up getting paid. So it's interesting now that he would take that position when he was a guy that held out to make sure he got as much money as he could back in the day. So like I said, that's kind of funny. But also it's just like, I don't understand why Dak, of all people, should be the one to take that pay cut. I mean, everyone's like, oh yeah, do it for the greater good, and I think a lot of people are just kind of a lot of people are just compared to Tom Brady in that degree. Obviously, he's been a guy that's taken less money over the course of his career, though obviously he can afford to because his wife's a supermodel, so he doesn't need the money as much as some other guys do. But also at the same time, like, that was his own decision. No one forced him to take less money. He willingly chose to do that, and obviously it worked out for him. He's won 6 Super Bowls, so no one's going to knock him for it. But at the same time, it's like, why should Dak have to be the guy to be like, hey, no, take less money so everyone else can get paid? Like, that's not my concern. I'm not the one signing the checks. I'm the one that's just hoping to cash them at the end of, after the games and what have you. How everybody gets paid is not a part of his job description. So why is it his concern how all the money's going to get spread out? That's the job of the owner and the GM to figure out, hey, how are we going to pay all these guys? Like, you didn't see no one's telling Mahomes to take less money. I take that back. People think he'll take less money because he's a good guy. I mean, I hate this conversation because it's like, oh, he's a good guy. He'll take less money to win. I'm like, no person in real life would ever be like, hey, you know what? You guys are going to offer me this, and that's cool. I could get this, but what if I took less so that you could hire another employee to do it? I mean, do a different job just so you guys have more money for the company, just so you can just continue to hire employees and pay for facilities and do whatever. Like, no one does that in the real world. Everyone wants as much money as they can, and rightfully so. I mean, we live in a society where money is very important in order to be able to do things that you want to do with your life. So, being able to make the most of it is obviously imperative. So, why is it only in sports, and why is it only really no one's ever asking the defensive tackle or offensive tackle to be like, hey, take less money. No one's ever asking the receiver, like, hey, you should take less. It's always incumbent on the quarterback to be like, hey, let's to make sure we can sign everybody else, which again isn't my problem if I'm the quarterback. It's not my problem. I don't have to. The GM and the cap guys and all that stuff are in charge of the budgeting and making sure that you can pay everybody on the team. That's again not my job description. I'm just supposed to play football. So why is it on me to be like, hey, you need to take less money so we can pay everybody? Like, no, the thought process should be, if I play well, I get compensated properly, and you do that same thing for everybody else, however that is. And if you got to figure some things out, if you got to let some other people go to pay people, I mean, that's just how the business of football works. It shouldn't be, like I said, it shouldn't be a requirement of me to be like, hey, take less so that we can pay other guys. That's not my problem. And especially for a guy like Dak, who's a 4th-round pick, and he hasn't even been. I mean, when you see guys in his own draft class like Goff and Wentz get their contract extensions and get paid the big money, they were the 1 and 2 pick overall, so they were already getting paid pretty well. Obviously not as well as they're getting paid now, but they were getting paid much better than Dak was. So he's already been on a bargain for 4 years, and the Cowboys haven't done anything with it. Though, I mean, you could argue whether some of that is or isn't Dak's fault, because obviously he didn't play that well in the biggest moments this season. But I mean, overall, he had a very good year. But I mean, the Cowboys really haven't done anything with him on as cheap as he's ever going to be. Like, at no point will he ever be cheaper than he was over these next 4 years. I mean, over these last 4 years. And what did Jerry and Steven do with that money? Not a whole lot. I mean, they used it to pay some other guys, but they did a whole lot with that money. They didn't end up winning a Super Bowl, get to a conference championship, nothing. So why is there a guarantee that me taking less money would do anything to benefit the team? Because obviously, like I said, him being on the bargain has already not helped it's helped the team because they've made the playoffs twice and they won the division twice, and made it to the divisional round twice. But it hasn't helped them. Like I said, it hasn't helped them win a Super Bowl. It hasn't helped them get to a Super Bowl. It hasn't helped them get to a conference championship. So why all of a sudden now me taking less money will then allow that to happen? And also, what this whole thing, like, oh, you'll make it back. Like, there's no. I mean, Dak's, like I said, I've seen him. He's in enough commercials where he's doing fine, but it's just like, we don't know how much money he gets paid for those commercials, and we don't know how much. I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks around the league, especially when you have a guy like Mahomes that just won the Super Bowl. You got Lamar Jackson coming up the season he has, Tom Brady's still around. Aaron Rodgers still around. Russell Wilson's still around. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can be marketed. It's not like Dak is the only guy, obviously. The being on the Cowboys helps, but it's not like he's the only guy in the league, and nor is he the best quarterback in the league. So there's other guys people are going to go to. I mean, even Baker was not good this year, but he was on a commercial every Sunday. It seemed like. So there's a lot of guys that can get marketed. It's not like it's strictly a Cowboys thing. Like a lot of players around the league are getting these kind of big time endorsement deals from big companies. So where is the guarantee that I'm going to make this money back that I'm giving back on the back end? There isn't. You can't guarantee that. So like, why would I, if I'm Dak again, and I've been making more money than most Americans, but I've been making pennies compared to most NFL players, why would I take less than what I feel like I'm worth? Like I said, they didn't make Zeke do that. They didn't make Jalen Smith do that. They didn't make Lyle Collins do that. They didn't make Tyron Smith do that. They didn't make Zach Martin do that. They didn't make Travis Frederick do that. Like when it came time to pay all their top guys, then they didn't. When it was time to pay Tony Romo, they paid him. Like it's like, why all of a sudden it's incumbent, like I said, on Dak to be like, hey, we know that you've made nothing basically over the last 4 years, but what if you like continue to make a little bit less than what you're worth to help us out? Like, no, it's stupid. Why would I do that if I'm Dak? Why, like that makes no sense. And that's probably part of the reason why they haven't come to a deal. I mean, because either in most of these scenarios, especially with the quarterback, the guys just get paid no matter who it is. Whoever it is, they're going to get paid that big amount of money, and it comes with position. No one, and like I said, no one was asking Wentz to take last. No one was asking Goff to take last. No one's asking Mahomes to take last. No one's going to be asking Deshaun Watson to take last. It's now if they choose to, that's on them. But no one's like openly discussing like, hey, you should take less money to benefit the team. Like no. If I'm your guy, you will pay me what I feel like I'm worth in most cases, and obviously that's probably a little bit somewhere at least in the ballpark of Goff and Wentz, and obviously going to be less than whatever Mahomes gets. So that's going to be really important for the Cowboys to get that deal done before then, because if they don't, then that deal is going to screw the market completely. So the fact they haven't already gotten this done is a disaster, and that's honestly probably why they headed towards the franchise. Well, it sounds like they headed towards the franchise tag. I guess we'll see in the next couple of weeks what happens with that. But just because there seems to be a disconnect on what the Cowboys think he should be willing to take and what Dak thinks he's worth. And I mean, you make the playoffs 2 out of your first 4 years in the league. I mean, that's worth something, in my opinion. So, like I said, I just think anybody telling Dak to take less money is foolish, and him taking less money would be foolish. So, hopefully he decides not to do that, because I just wouldn't understand it at all, honestly. And it's just, like I said, it's just funny coming from Emmitt Smith, who literally held out for money back in because he didn't feel like he was trying to get paid what he thought he was worth, which I mean is his prerogative. And I'm always for empowering players to hold out and get their money, because unlike other sports, their contracts aren't fully guaranteed. So you got to get as much as you can up front and in total, just so. Because you're probably not going to see the totality of that contract, whatever the numbers are. You're not going to see all that money. So just try to get as much of it as you can. And that's literally what he did. And now he's like, hey, the Cowboys brand is so big and so good that you'll be able to make the money up somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. I'm like, come on. Just pay me. Just pay me. Just pay me. That's all I'm asking. Just pay me my money if I'm Dak. Just show me the money. Show me the money. All of the money. Not some of it. All of the money. But I guess we'll see how that goes. Like I said, if the Cowboys really believed in him, he would have been paid already. But, I mean, here we are. So after this, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss arguably the biggest fight of the year that is coming up this Saturday. I mean, you guys should know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, then like I said, we will discuss it in a few moments. So stay right here, and we'll be right back.
you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, if you didn't know, you haven't been paying attention. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, number 2 is coming up this Saturday. And, I mean, like I said, it's arguably the biggest fight of the year. I mean, it's a rematch of a very hotly contested and hotly debated bout, as many people believe had, if not for that round 12 knockdown, Tyson Fury probably wins the fight. And then on the flip side of that, if Tyson Fury doesn't get a long 10 count, or just somehow isn't superhuman to a degree, he probably gets knocked out in that 12th round. Deontay Wilder wins, and hence the original fight ended in a tie. So here we are. I mean, probably would have been a rematch regardless, if not for the tie. But now there was a tie, so we are here. And also, there was a interesting development on Thursday. The Nevada Athletic Commission won't allow Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury to square off at the weigh-in. There was Wilder and Fury had a shoving match during their stare down. During a stay on Wednesday prior to news conference at MGM Grand Garden. Bob Bennett of the Nevada Athletic Commission decided Thursday to prevent the heavyweights from posing for the traditional face-off photo following Friday's weigh-in. Just like I said, I guess just to be safe, to make sure that nothing happens. Though, I mean, it's kind of interesting because they hadn't really been too much news. I know the guys have been making their rounds on different shows and saying things, but there hadn't really been too much controversy, whatever, regarding the fight. So this is interesting that this kind of popped up almost out of nowhere, it seemed, with this face-off thing. But hey, I mean, you'd rather be safe than sorry. There's no reason to push it if you don't have to. So it makes sense. But to the boxing. One of the interesting things is the fact that they're gonna weigh in at very different weights for this one, which would be very interesting. I know. Not Tyson. Wilder's one of the most fit heavyweights I've ever remember seeing. He's just a big guy that's absolutely ripped. And almost so skinny to a degree. And also he caught the flu bug, according to Yahoo Sports, late in his camp. This was from February 10th. Take that back. This is going back to their original fight. And he weighed in at 212 pounds, the lowest he had been since he was 207 in his pro debut. Fury came in at 256. So the 44-pound weight advantage. So it was a 44-pound weight advantage to start the fight. Wilder weighed in at 223, 223, and 219 in his next two bouts, and the figure is to weigh in somewhere around the 220s. I guess we'll find out on Friday as he meets Fury. apparently, though, Fury decided he's going to come in even heavier. Maybe it's muscle. Maybe it's not necessarily fat. But apparently, the 6'9" Fury told Yahoo Sports he expects to weigh in around 270 pounds. And he's been working like with a nutritionist who has been pairing his meal and said it's not part of a grand strategy to get bigger or a repeat of what Andy Ruiz Jr. did in his rematch with Joshua, where he essentially ate, drank, and partied his way out of the IBF, WBA, WBO heavyweight titles. Ruiz had never, he obviously wasn't like an absolutely fit guy, but he came in at 268 when he stunned Joshua the first time and knocked him out in the 7th round to win the titles ahead of the rematch. Apparently, like I said, he partied and did a lot of things, and he admitted later, and weighed in at a whopping 283, his third heaviest figure in his career. So Fury claims that he's been eating right and training right, so maybe a lot of it's muscle, and he weighs in that, but it is interesting that he's going to come in heavier for this fight than he did for the last one. Though, in fairness, I would, if I'm him, make it so that there's more of me that Wilder has to knock out. Because as we know, with Wilder, that's his thing. He's not very, and from what I've seen, kind of, in my personal opinion, he's not a very technically sound boxer. He's a guy that's just gonna swing wildly, and when he connects, you usually fall down and don't get back up, basically. So, with that being said, if you are heavier, in theory at least, it should be harder to knock you down. And I think that's probably going to be the key to this fight, because at the end of the day, like I said, if he didn't get that knockdown there in that last round until that would almost look like won the fight, he probably loses. I guess many people had him losing going into that round. Even if he won that round, he still had him losing. So his best chance for a win is, in my opinion, is to go for the knockout. That's what he does. So it makes sense for him to go for the knockout. But Fury is not necessarily isn't an easy guy to knock out. Obviously, they're both coming into this undefeated, obviously, except for the one tie on their records against each other. But yeah, he's not an easy guy to knock out. So anything to provide Fury an advantage to make sure that it not only goes the distance but also goes the distance, and he doesn't hit the canvas that many times, I would do as well. So if that means putting on more weight, if that means putting on more muscle, whatever the case may be, for me to allow myself to be better able to withstand the punching power of Deontay Wilder is what I would do. But yeah, so this is definitely going to be an interesting one, just because it seems like it would, if this fight, it's like one of those weird things in my opinion where if Wilder wins, it's pretty much going to have to be my knockout. Like I said, he's not necessarily a very technically sound fighter, and there are probably and there have been cases throughout his career where you could argue he was losing a fight, and then he just knocks the guy out, and then basically none of that matters. And that's just kind of been the story of it. It's like, when in doubt, he's going to connect with you one good time, and you're going to fall down and not going to be able to get back up, and then you're going to lose. So you kind of that's basically what people were waiting for in the last fight, and it happened, and just shockingly, Fury was able to get back up from it. So I think Wilder probably knows that, Fury probably knows that. So if it goes the distance, then goes all 12 rounds, and Fury doesn't hit the canvas, he's probably going to win, in my personal opinion. So what that means, or how that means Wilder's going to attack him, I'm not 100% certain. But it would seem that the Wilder way of winning would be a knockout, obviously. And then Fury, if Fury can just make this thing go the distance, a lot of people, like I said, already thought he was going to win the first fight, or won the first fight on the cards, even with, like I said, the late knockdown. So if he can find a way, and maybe that was with him putting more muscle or whatever it is, more weight on this time around, though, like he said, hopefully it's not the Andy Ruiz type of weight, no offense to him, but he admitted later that he didn't really prepare his body the way he should have coming into this second fight with Anthony Joshua. But yeah, so if Fury can find a way to withstand those hits, not hit the canvas, and make it go the distance, I think that's probably how he wins. So I would be very hard pressed to see this go 12 rounds and Wilder win by decision, unless you're just beating him up and knocking him down round after round after round. Like just one knockdown, in my opinion, wouldn't really get the job done like it did last time. Or, I mean, I guess because technically he didn't get the job done because he didn't win, but it just like ended up being in a tie. So, I mean, at the end of the day, all I want is just not a tie. I just want somebody to come out of this victorious. Doesn't really matter who it is, though. I think it'll be Wilder, just because I think when you have that ability to just, you could be losing the fight for how many of rounds? 5, 6, 7, 10 even. And you just land one good hit. And it's over. I think that's almost a little too scary to bet against, in my personal opinion. It's hard for me to believe that he's not going to land that one punch just that one time on Fury, and then that'll be it. It's, like I said, he's done it literally against every single person, just about. So, why it would stop now, I don't know. So, that's what I'm saying. I'd be shocked if this is the fight where he's not able to land that punch. Because even in the last fight, he was able to land it. He just didn't, unfortunately, it just didn't knock him out. But he was still able to land that punch where you thought, all right, this is it. And it looked like I said, it was it until Tyson Fury rose up like the Undertaker and was able to find a way to get to his feet and finish out the round, which was, just watching that back is still kind of absurd. But yeah, so it's like I said, it should be a good fight, assuming, like I said, Wilder just doesn't knock him out early. But yeah, it should be a good fight. It's definitely on paper, one of the biggest fights of the year. It's definitely one many people have been anticipating. And then also, there's a lot of opportunity, because depending on how this one goes, you could potentially get a third rematch. You could potentially get a third bout. Depending on if the guys want to do it. Like I said, I guess we'll have to see how this fight goes. You could potentially get a third, maybe now set up a match with Joshua or somebody else in that heavyweight division. So, it'd be interesting just to see, regardless of who wins, just where they go from here. Just because, they'll definitely have options, assuming this fight isn't just absolutely boring, which is I'd be shocked to see that this weekend, that this fight was basically just a bunch of. But as long as that's not the case, there's going to be options for both of these guys. So we're just now at that point, it's just up to them to take advantage of what will have to be laid out in front of them. So we'll see how that goes. Like I said, it should be interesting if you're, even if you're busy and you're out on Saturday, still find a place that has a TV so you can watch the fight. If you're not busy, then hey, just tune in, chip in on the pay-per-view. You go to somebody's house you know is watching the pay-per-view. You go to a restaurant you know where the fight will be on. Whatever you have to do to watch it. Because whenever there's a guy like a Wilder where he got the one punch knockout power, I'm always tuned into those fights. You don't ever want to miss it, just because you don't ever know if and when that knockout's. Well, usually you know that the knockout's coming, you just don't know when. So you just want to. It's always I'm a knockout guy, so I'm always entertained by that. So I'm always interested to see that stuff and see how it goes. So, like I said, tune in. It should be a good one, and whatever happens, good, bad, controversial, we'll be here to talk about it after the fact. I guess coming on Monday, you guys will hear from me, and we'll be able to discuss it then. So after this last break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk. Obviously, as you know, spring training, Pigeon Catchers reported spring training getting ready to start up. And the Yankees are dealing with some injury issues already. And they're a team that's supposedly on paper, things are lining up for them to get to the World Series, but they're already facing a couple road bumps and the season hasn't even started yet. So we're going to talk about those and talk about how they can kind of overcome them, and if you should be worried if you're a Yankees fan before the season in February. I guess you guys are hearing this the 21st. If February 21st, you should already be a little bit worried about the team. We'll talk about all that stuff right after this last break. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So I would imagine if you're a Yankees fan, are you surprised by this new news that came out today? Not necessarily, especially if you look at this. If you look at last season, the Yankees set a major league record by sending 30 players to the injured list. So it's not like this is anything new for them, but I guess not their ace anymore because they got Garrett Cole, but one of their best pitchers, and Luis Severino, has been shut down for the time being. Like I said, the Yankees seem to be picking up right where they left off last season on the injury front, as Severino joined the list of players. List of players dealing with ailments this spring training. Severino became the second pitcher shut down by the Yankees this spring after reporting right forearm discomfort, which apparently dates back to last October. Not great. The Yankees will already be without pitcher James Paxton through at least April, I should say, after the lefty underwent a procedure to remove a cyst as well as a microscopic lumbar surgery. And outfielder Aaron Judge has been dealing with shoulder discomfort and has not taken any batting practice yet this spring. That is as of the afternoon on Thursday. So, not ideal. Severino was scratched from throwing his second bullpen session in camp and didn't take part in pitching fielding drills on Thursday after the workout manager Aaron Boone said Severino had been dealing with forearm discomfort that started after Game 3 of the ALCS against the Astros. General manager Brian Cashman said that Severino had 2 MRIs, one in December, January, and a CAT scan after complaining of discomfort, and all tests have been negative, so that's kind of interesting. After the MRI in December, Boone said Severino returned to Dominican Republic and was cleared to start throwing. And whenever he's on flat ground, when he throws a changeup, he's just feeling that discomfort in his form. Boone said in January, Severino was treated with anti-inflammatories and said he felt fine. Was treated, I should say, not tested, treated with anti-inflammatories. And also tested revealed a loose body near his elbow, which the team believes is an incidental, unrelated finding. When Severino ramped to his throwing program in the spring, he stayed away from the changeup, and they brought the changeup back the last couple of days, and he was feeling fine. And the other night, he was at home and was feeling that discomfort in his right forearm again. So they haven't ruled out that he might start the season at least on the injured list, which again is not great. He's only 26. Severino is at the moment. But, he didn't pitch until September of last year after spending most of the season on the injured list because of injuries to his right rotator cuff and lat muscle. So, it's just one of those things where obviously the arm is the most important thing on a pitcher. So if there's a guy who's always having some sort of ailments with his arm, not necessarily great. And when you're already a team that was kind of in need of starting pitching anyway, to have 2 of your potential 4 or 5 main rotation guys be out is not ideal at all, especially in a season where a lot of people think that there's a good chance that the Yankees can make the World Series. And also, I mean, I didn't even touch on the fact that Domingo Germán, another pitcher for them, is suspended as we speak, and he hasn't even been a part of spring training. Apparently, he has 63 games left to serve in an 81 game suspension he accepted in January for violating baseball's domestic violence rules, and he'll continue to work out in the Dominican Republic away from the team, obviously. But so yeah, that's another pitcher that they were expecting to count on coming into the season. Obviously, they knew about this for a while, so this isn't like new. The Severino thing's new, but this isn't new. But still, it's a big part. I mean, they got Cole and Tanaka, but it's like, I mean, Germán was very good for them last year. Went 18-4 in 24 starts, 27 appearances. So, I mean, he was going to be, I would have thought, a big part of their rotation. And now to be out with two of their main five for injury, and then another guy due to suspension. I mean, that's already weakening the part of their team that wasn't really their strongest. I mean, obviously gotten stronger by signing Garrett Cole, but that was their biggest thing over the last couple of years. Is they haven't had that one dominant pitcher. Now they have that one dominant pitcher. Now they just don't have anyone around them because the guys are on and off the injury list. And I mean, we'll see how long these guys are out. Well, obviously we know Germán's out for a while, but we'll see how long like Paxton and Severino end up being out. But like I said, anytime you have continued discomfort in your pitching arm for a guy, that's just always a little worrisome in my opinion. And it's just a thing where this should be on paper the Yankees' year. I mean, the Astros are a mess right now. We don't really know how they're going to handle this most hated team in the league thing. They could completely fold, and that would not be surprising to me in the slightest if that were to happen. So there is that. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, Boston just traded their best player to the Dodgers, so they're probably not going to be as competitive this year. And I mean, obviously you'll see teams like the Angels try to improve. We'll see how much that helps. And obviously getting Rendon and getting Ohtani back should definitely at least help a little bit, but you never really know. The A's are always like weirdly good every year. The same with the Rays are always like weirdly good every year. In the Central, I think a lot of people think that the White Sox could maybe make that next step and at least be competitive. I mean, how high or low they'll be in the playoff seeding is a different scenario, but at least be competitive this year. The Twins are still be pretty competitive. I mean, the Indians haven't really bottomed out at all recently. So yeah, it's just like on paper it should be the Yankees' year, but I mean, other teams are going to have something to say about that. But I mean, it's like I said, it's already starting out a little shaky. And we haven't even played any real games yet. We haven't even really played any. I don't even think they played any spring training games yet. And they're already dealing with injuries to multiple guys. Like, it's absurd. I mean, I'm not a Yankees fan, but if I were a Yankees fan, I'd be like, what's going on? What did we do to deserve this? Because it just seems like we just can't seem to get out of our own way when it comes to the injuries. They just can't seem to get out of their own way. No matter what they do, no matter who it is, or what happens, someone's going to be hurt. That's just that kind of, unfortunately, the reality that they're living in right now. And it's just, like I said, it's an unfortunate situation for them to be in where it doesn't matter who it is, somebody's going to be hurt. So, I guess we'll have to see how they manage that. But if both Paxton and Severino start the year in the aisle, I mean, that's just like a bad omen for how the season's going to play out. This is coming off the season where they had 30 guys end up on the injury list throughout the season. So you're coming off the heels of that, and you're already going to start with multiple guys and multiple key guys on the injury list to begin the season. And potentially, at least we know Paxton will be, but we don't know about Severino. But I'm saying, like, if he's been having discomfort dating back to October, then they should take their time with this, because clearly something's up. This isn't just like a random one-off thing just popped. Like, this has been something that's been plaguing him for a while, and he tries different things and it goes away, and then he comes back. So it's like you gotta do something, or else before he just has something seriously wrong with him and he end up getting shut down for a longer period of time. I mean, we've talked about Judge hasn't even taken batting practice yet. I think, who was it? Aaron Hicks, their center fielder, had to undergo Tommy John surgery. And when was this? October. So we'll see how that goes, and see when he's going to be healthy. I mean, well, I guess, yeah, because he's always set to miss the start of the 2020 season as he begins because it's an 8 to 10 month recovery from the Tommy John surgery. Obviously, he's not a pitcher, so it's not as serious, but still, I mean, he's not going to be there to start. And I mean, he was at least vital for the team because he provided what they kind of needed, and that's a left-handed bat, because their lineup is very right-hand dominant. Now, so that's not going to matter as much over the course of the regular season, but when you get to the playoffs, if you face a team, though, I mean, they have that in Garrett Cole now, so that definitely helps. But if you face a team with a dominant right-handed pitcher, I mean, and you go up against guys that strike out a lot already, they're kind of in bad shape. So, yeah, I mean, I forgot about the Aaron Hicks. Yeah, they already have multiple guys hurt before the season even starts. And and who knows what could happen once the games start being played for real. So it's just like, if you're a Yankee fan, you're just like, I feel like you got to be at least coming a little bit nervous. Because you think it's everything stacking up for you, everything's lining up, and then you guys just can't get out of your own way when it comes to the injuries. So it's just like, if I were a Yankee fan, I'd definitely be at least a little wary of being too confident. Even if on paper they should be confident. It's just like, hey, you gotta see it play out. You gotta see that people stay healthy. Because right now that's going to be the biggest thing plaguing them, is like, can they get all their guys healthy, or have all their guys healthy by the time the playoffs come around? Because they shouldn't have enough injuries where they're out of the playoff hunt. But if and when the playoff race is heating up, or even the one they get to the playoffs, is like, will all their guys be there to help contribute? Because if they're not, then that's obviously a big deal. So, I mean, maybe this is it. Maybe this is all the injuries they'll deal with. I mean, I'm not all of them, because obviously people are going to get injured. It's a 162 game season. It's impossible for guys not to get hurt. But maybe it's only the major guys that they have get hurt. So we'll see. But like I said, if you're a Yankees fan, you got to at least be a little bit worried for how the season's starting off on the injury front after it's stemming from last season, where you set an MLB record for guys on the injured list. So we will see how that goes and continue to monitor the Yankees' injury situation. But that'll do it here for me today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. If you could as well, please give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. It's very helpful, very appreciated. We will thank you for it. And also, if you're on social media, we are on social media, so you can find us there: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Wherever you are, we are, so we can talk, we can chat, we can discuss all that fun stuff we can do there. And as always, I've been Chris Blades. I want to thank you guys for listening. That has been my time. And until we meet again, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.